With the selection of a jury in the Sean Diddy Combs case almost complete, prosecutors are preparing for opening arguments on Monday. But they admit there's a snag. One of their key witnesses against the rapper appears to have gone missing. This comes as we learn that Combs' ex-girlfriend, who was seen on video being assaulted by the rapper, is pregnant.
The name of victim number 3 was going to be revealed when she took the stand, but the woman has apparently gone missing, and prosecutors say they've been unable to reach her.
People just get nervous, and this person could just be nervous and just has had second thoughts.
If the prosecutor can't find this witness, how might it affect the case?
Look, I don't think it's going to have a tremendous effect. The prosecution is going to call a number of alleged victims. So look, this is just one less.
You are absolutely not going to believe the pretrial madness swirling around the Diddy case. I mean, jury selection, it's right on the verge of wrapping up, and then bam. Their key witness, this victim 3 figure we've heard about, just vanished. Like vanished into thin air.
Wow. Okay, the timing of that is, well, it really jumps out, doesn't it? For a witness considered so crucial to just go silent right before trial.
Right.
It suggests, a potentially massive issue. It really highlights a core problem in these kinds of cases involving powerful people. The fear, the pressure, it can stop victims testifying, even with protections in place.
Exactly. And it's thrown a major curveball for the prosecution. They've basically said it's a serious problem. This was someone they were really banking on, to build their case against Sean Combs, and now just silence.
It created a huge hole, potentially, in their whole strategy.
That's
And think about the sheer number of allegations here. I mean, going back decades. To build a strong narrative, prosecutors really depend on victims being willing and able to share what happened in court. Losing someone central like this late, it could seriously weaken their ability to show the whole picture.
And as if that wasn't enough drama.
Yeah.
Get this. News just dropped that Diddy's ex, Cassie Ventura, the one from that awful hotel video we all saw, she's pregnant. I mean, you honestly can't make this stuff up. It just adds this incredibly complicated emotional layer to an already explosive situation.
Yeah, that development with Cassie Ventura definitely brings a really significant emotional angle to the trial. She's expected to testify using her own name, right?
Yeah.
And her pregnancy could potentially resonate quite deeply with the jury, maybe evoke sympathy, a sort of protectiveness.
Yeah.
Especially when you think about the power imbalance people talk about in her relationship with Diddy and her, smaller physical size compared to him.
The whole thing is already being called a total circus, and the trial hasn't even started. And it gets weirder. A juror, someone already selected, is asked to be removed.
Seriously?
Yeah, citing concerns for their personal well-being. It just shows the kind of intense pressure cooker this case has turned into for literally everyone involved.
Wow. That juror's request really underlines the intense scrutiny, doesn't it? And the potential public exposure that comes with a trial this big. Anyone involved, witness, juror, anyone. They're probably hyper aware of the stakes and, the relentless media glare on every single twist.
And then you've got Johnny Depp's lawyer, Ben Chu, throwing in his 2 cents on the ideal jury for Diddy.
Oh, this should be interesting.
Right. He thinks someone eager to serve might actually be more inclined to, look favorably on a celebrity.
Yeah.
And he even suggested kind of surprisingly younger male jurors and people who actually follow celebrity gossip.
Huh.
Apparently, he figures older female jurors might be less sympathetic towards Diddy.
Okay. Chu's take on jury selection is, it's definitely noteworthy, maybe a bit unconventional. His thinking seems to be that people more into celebrity culture might be less critical.
Maybe.
The suggestion about younger male jurors is an interesting angle, and his view on older female jurors, that probably reflects certain assumptions about how they might see power dynamics and these kinds of abuse allegations.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit to Diddy's actual legal defense. The buzz is that his team is planning to argue that, his past relationships weren't always just one-sided, implying there was some mutual acting out.
Right.
Trying to blur the lines, it sounds like.
Yeah, and here's where it gets really critical, I think. While the defense might try to paint this picture of, mutually volatile relationships, legal insiders are saying that strategy could totally backfire.
How so?
Well, even if they can show some moments of consensual, let's say, messiness, it doesn't actually negate the accusations of control, of abuse of power, especially when you have such a huge difference in wealth and influence. Like with Diddy, you know what I mean?
Right, exactly. Just because things might have been rocky doesn't excuse potential abuse or coercion. And they're also expected to tackle that hotel video with Cassie, probably trying to frame it as just like a private argument that got heated, nothing criminal.
Trying to downplay the hotel video as just a private argument is, well, it's a predictable move. But the visual evidence of what looks like an assault, plus Cassie's expected testimony, that's a pretty big hurdle for that narrative. The prosecution will definitely argue the video isn't just some argument, it's actual proof of a pattern of abusive behavior.
What's kind of mind-blowing, though, is that despite all this pressure mounting, Diddy is apparently turning down every single plea deal the prosecution offers him.
Really? All of them?
That's a report. He must be incredibly confident that he can beat these charges in court.
Well, rejecting plea deals, it could be a few things, right? Maybe a genuine belief he's innocent, or a calculated risk, thinking he can poke holes in the evidence or discredit witnesses. Or perhaps maybe underestimating how strong the prosecution's case actually is. Either way, it's an extremely risky move, especially considering how serious the charges are.
And those charges are incredibly serious. We heard from a former FBI agent, Bobby Ciccone, who basically laid out how tough it is to build a solid case against someone with Diddy's kind of power and, frankly, money, especially with allegations going back 2 decades and involving such sensitive stuff.
Yeah, when you're dealing with allegations over such a long time, the challenges for the prosecution are just huge. Memories fade, witnesses can be hard to find after years, and the chance that crucial evidence is lost or destroyed just goes way up. Ciccone's point about how hard it is to get people to come forward against someone powerful, especially when it involves really personal, maybe embarrassing details, that's key to understanding why this case is so complex.
The allegations themselves are being called wild and deadly serious. We're talking claims that Diddy allegedly ran a whole criminal enterprise through his businesses, using threats, weapons, all kinds of abuse, emotional, physical, sexual, just to maintain total control.
Those are extraordinarily serious allegations. It suggests like a systematic pattern of abuse and control that supposedly ran through his whole business structure. That phrase criminal empire really underlines the alleged scale and seriousness. It's not just isolated incidents, it's painted as a broader pattern of alleged criminal behavior. And the racketeering charges Diddy's facing, they're specifically designed for those kinds of organized criminal patterns tied to an enterprise.
And it gets even darker, apparently. There are these allegations that Diddy might have tried to intimidate witnesses even while locked up.
Oh, wow.
And that he's been pushing other people to make statements defending him. It's being called potential textbook witness tampering.
Okay, if those witness tampering allegations turn out to be true, that would be a major escalation. It shows like a blatant disregard for the whole legal process. Any attempt to influence testimony, whether by scaring someone or getting them to lie, that's a very, very serious offense on its own and could put Diddy in even deeper legal trouble.
Yeah, he's looking at some incredibly heavy charges, racketeering, like you said, and transporting people across state lines for prostitution. If he gets convicted, minimum 15 years, potentially life in prison.
Those specific charges, racketeering, interstate transportation for prostitution, they really show how seriously the legal system views these allegations. And yeah, the potential for a life sentence. That reflects just how grave the accusations are and what the consequences could be if he's found guilty.
We've also heard some really disturbing personal stories coming out. Aubrey O'Day shared her own experiences, alleging Diddy demeaned her looks and just highlighting how vulnerable women were in the industry back then, especially with NDAs silencing everyone.
O'Day's account gives a pretty stark picture of the alleged culture at the time, right? Where these non-disclosure agreements were maybe used constantly to shut people up and protect powerful men. Her allegations about verbal abuse, the lack of protection for women. It really emphasizes the power dynamics that are so central to a lot of these accusations against Diddy.
And then Gene Deal came forward with this absolutely shocking claim, alleging Diddy had this horrific plan to exploit his girl group. Her description was just awful, alleging plans to drug them and basically, well, pimp them out.
Deal's allegations are, profoundly disturbing. If they're true, they paint a picture of just extreme exploitation and criminal intent. The fact that she's willing to share something so graphic and troubling despite the risks, it says a lot about how serious these claims are.
And adding even more to this absolute firestorm, prosecutors have apparently brought in new evidence. It's linked to the civil lawsuits that are also going on. Legal insiders are suggesting this new stuff might involve really troubling behavior related to underage individuals, which just takes the seriousness to a whole other level.
Okay, introducing new evidence hinting at potential involvement with minors, that would be a highly significant development. It could suggest a much broader pattern of alleged misconduct and complicates Diddy's legal situation even further. It might also explain why the prosecution seems so determined, even with that key witness disappearing.
Meanwhile, Diddy's legal team has been fighting tooth and nail to get key evidence thrown out. Things like these alleged freak-off tapes, whatever those are, and baby oil seized from his properties. They're arguing the search warrants weren't done right.
Yeah, challenging search warrants is pretty standard defense playbook stuff. The Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable searches, right? So if the defense can show the warrant didn't have probable cause or wasn't executed properly, any evidence found could be inadmissible. That would be a huge win for them.
But so far, the judge isn't buying it. He's ruled that all the evidence submitted stays in, which means those freak-off tapes, they could potentially be played in court. It's hard to even imagine what could be on them.
Right. And his lawyers are also arguing the searches of his iCloud, his phones, devices, even his hotel room were unconstitutional, saying the government basically twisted the facts to get those warrants.
Sounds like they're throwing everything at the wall.
Well, these are more attempts to challenge how the evidence was gathered. Claiming the government misrepresented things to get a warrant is a serious accusation. If they succeeded, it could mean suppressing vital evidence. But the judge has repeatedly ruled against them on this, which suggests the court hasn't found strong enough reasons to agree with those claims yet.
And get this, the defense is apparently even arguing that Cassie Ventura was a willing participant in these drug-fueled sex performances called freak-offs, not coerced or abused.
That's going to be a central fight in the case, for sure. The defense trying to frame these alleged events as consensual, even with the drugs potentially involved. The prosecution, obviously, will argue that given the power dynamics, the history of alleged abuse, any apparent consent wasn't real consent.
Switching to the civil side for a sec, it's just as chaotic over there. Out of more than 60 civil lawsuits filed against Diddy, 2 have actually already been dropped.
Oh, why?
One woman apparently didn't want her identity revealed, and another one, well, her case kind of fell apart after Jay-Z publicly denied her claims about him being present at something.
Those dismissals do highlight the real challenges victims face, right? The fear of being publicly identified, the huge legal firepower someone like Diddy has. It's tough.
But this is where it gets absolutely staggering. There's an attorney, Andrew Van Arsdale, representing 37 people in civil suits right now. He's claiming there could be over 400 more lawsuits coming.
400.
400. He says tons of potential claimants were just too scared to come forward because of Diddy's, immense power and influence.
Wow. Van Arsdale saying there could be hundreds more lawsuits. That really paints a picture of the alleged climate of fear and intimidation that might have surrounded Diddy for years. The sheer potential number of claimants suggests a really widespread pattern of alleged misconduct that's maybe only just starting to surface. His center apparently got a crazy number of calls about Diddy, thousands potentially legit, hundreds possibly leading to suits. Those numbers are... There's something else.
And Van Arsdale even hinted that future lawsuits might name other shocking people, not just John Gomes. Can you even imagine the potential fallout from that?
The idea of other high-profile people being implicated just adds another layer of complexity, doesn't it? An intrigue to this whole sprawling mess. It suggests the alleged misconduct might have involved a whole network.
And speaking of other names, one of the lawsuits surprisingly lists LeBron James, Jay-Z, Gloria Estefan, and Beyonce Knowles Carter as potential witnesses.
Right, as witnesses, not defendants.
Right, potential witnesses. Apparently because they were allegedly present or knew about things related to these freak-offs. They're not being sued, but they might get called to testify.
Yeah.
Though you have to imagine they'll fight those subpoenas hard.
Including names that are huge, even just as potential witnesses.
Yeah.
It really shows the wide net being cast in these legal fights.
So all these new allegations, potential new witnesses, this could seriously mess up the trial timeline, right? What everyone thought might be a 3-week trial could easily blow up into months, maybe even years, with all the investigations needed.
Oh, absolutely. Introducing new allegations, new potential witnesses. It inevitably causes significant delays. The defense needs time to investigate everything new. The prosecution might need to gather more evidence. Yeah, it stretches things out considerably.
But here's a potentially game-changing twist. Van Arsdale, that same lawyer, revealed that some of his clients, they're now actively cooperating with federal investigators.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they might even testify in the criminal case. Apparently, that's something they thought was totally impossible before.
Okay, that could be huge. Civil lawsuit, plaintiffs cooperating with the feds in a criminal case. That could give the prosecution vital corroborating evidence, maybe significantly strengthen their case against Diddy, especially if they lost that key witness.
So this deep dive into the whole Diddy saga, I mean, it's revealed a case just absolutely packed with drama. Disappearing witnesses, intense legal fights, these shocking allegations that clearly go way beyond just one person.
Yeah, the complexities of power, influence, the long shadow of alleged abuse, those are definitely the central themes here as this very public case heads towards trial.
And with the real possibility of even more witnesses stepping up and that staggering number of potential civil claims still out there, it really feels like this story is nowhere near finished.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
About what it truly takes for justice to be served when you're up against that level of fame and fortune, creating these huge barriers. It's something profound to consider moving forward.